Have you ever spent a day getting stronger, then returning to the exact same campaigning and still lost? Because that's the moment I realized some campaigning's woes aren't power check at all. And honestly, that's a pretty frustrating realization because when most of us hit a wall, we already know the answer. Or at least we think we do. Get stronger, get more levels, get some gear, get some more power, problem solved. Simple. Except something it isn't. I start thinking about this after seeing players discuss some of the nastier campaigning stages. And I noticed something interesting. The conversation almost always starts the same way. What power should I be? What level should my heroes be? How much stronger do I need to get? Nobody was asking something else. And I think that's where the mistake starts. Because the real question isn't always how much power am I missing? Sometimes it's just what tools I'm missing. And those are completely different questions. Then I noticed something weird. Some players would get stuck for weeks. And honestly, it also happened to me to get stuck for weeks in same campaigning. Then I tried to change some hero, one, then 10 heroes. Not the entire team, just one hero. And suddenly the stage falls over. How doesn't that make any sense? If power was a problem, one hero shouldn't change everything. If the power is the problem when you cannot get one stage. But apparently it doesn't. And that's when I start paying attention to what was actually happening inside those fights. Not the power numbers, the fights themselves. And what surprised me was how often the account wasn't weak, but the account was incomplete. That's a very different problem because campaigning doesn't just test strength, it tests answers. And some fights are asking questions your roster can't answer. Then things get interesting because I start noticing different types of walls. Some walls are damage walls. The enemy simply survived too long. Fair enough. Most players understand those. But other walls are hero walls. Your damage is fine, your tank is fine, everything is fine, until the fight lasts 30 seconds longer than expected. Then suddenly, everybody dies. And now the obvious question become what was this account actually weak, or was it just missing some sustain? That's a very different conclusion. Then I start noticing another type: control walls. And those are nasty because players often don't realize they're happening. The enemy keep getting abilities off. The wrong targets keep dying. The fight constantly spiral out of control. And players respond by adding more power. But maybe the fight doesn't need more power. Maybe it needs somebody preventing the enemy from playing the game. And that's where I think people accidentally waste weeks of progression. They're solving the wrong problem. And I also got this problem at one point. I was not able to survive one stage. It was about against the Anubis. And the thing I used there was actually I use Abraham Lincoln, and I exactly match the timing where the single target, I think it was Sir Lancelot, was destroying my heroes. And I tried to mock his hits with Abraham Lincoln, and it worked perfectly fine. So this is just a little example how I solve my problem. But many players are solving the wrong problem. Then I notice another pattern. Some campaigning stage aren't asking for healing. They're asking for control. It can be slow, it can be defense down, it can be attack down, it can be just stun like Medusa. They're asking for control, or like we like to say it here, manipulators. They're asking for taunts. And honestly, this took me a while to appreciate, because taunts are one of those mechanics that don't look exciting. You don't see giant damage numbers, you don't see flashy screenshots, but then you watch a carry hero stop get focused, and suddenly everything change. Same team, same power, different outcome. Which raises another question: how many hard stages are actually just targeting the wrong heroes? And once I start thinking that way, campaigning became much more interesting, because now I wasn't asking, how do I get stronger? I was asking, what if this stage trying to kill? Those questions lead to very different decisions. Then I noticed something else. Some walls are actually positioning wall. And this one surprised me actually, because players love talking about heroes, but nobody is actually talking about positioning in Heroes of History Epic Empire. And I think this is one of the main problems also. Players love talking about the levels, players love talking about the heroes, players love talking about investments, but sometimes moving hero around creates a bigger improvement than entire week of progression. And honestly, I hate how true that is, because it feels unfair. You spend days farming resources, then fix positioning, and suddenly the fights work. And I have a videos on my channel where I talk about also the positioning. You can go and check it out. But in general, sometimes it's actually RNG related. Sometimes it's actually if this mob or troop in front is going to die, and the enemy hero hit your hero, or is not going to die and the enemy hero hit your troop, another way around. I mean, there is just so many things in Heroes of History Epic Empire that people have to keep in mind, and it's not only just the hero and the ability this hero is having. But I've been seeing it happen too many times to ignore that thing. Then I noticed another category: the wall that completely changed how you evaluate your heroes. Damage over time. For a long time, I thought certain heroes were just average. Then I started seeing stages where damage over time completely transformed the fights. And there is no secret that one of the best heroes, or the hero that every pro player suggests to go to level 140, this is Menace. What Menace is doing? Is doing crazy damage over time, and also control reducing the movement speed. But anyway, this is just an example. Not because the hero suddenly becomes stronger, because the stage was finally asking the question that hero was built to answer. And that's when another realization hit me. Players often judge heroes based on the wrong content. A hero that feels mediocre in one fight can completely carry another one, which means a roster isn't really a control of the strong heroes, it's a collection of answers. And more answers you have, the fewer woes feels impossible. Then I start looking at the account that progress surprisingly fast. And something stood out. They weren't always the strongest accounts. Sometimes they were just even they weren't even close. But they had option: a healer, a taunt, control, damage over time, flexibility. Meanwhile, stronger accounts would occasionally get stuck because they only had one answer: more damage. And that's where I think the biggest campaigning myth fall apart. Players think campaigning is mainly testing power. I don't think that's true anymore. I think campaigning is testing preparation. Power helps, obviously, but preparation decides whether power matter. And that's a completely different way to think about progression. Then things got even more interesting because once I start looking at campaigning this way, I realized getting stuck isn't always a bad news. Sometimes getting stuck tells you exactly what your accounts need next. Maybe you need a healer, maybe you need some control, maybe you need another tank, maybe you need better positioning, maybe you need to stop leveling the same type of heroes over and over. And I'm going to give you an example. What happened with me is I was going with Hitsusuit. She was one of my favorite heroes before I get Ashoka Eternalized. And Hitsusuit was doing crazy good work until my tank started dying very fast. At this point, Hitsusuit, even though she was a very good healer, she was not able to help me to keep this tank alive because the abilities was little slow and also the healing was not that big. So then I go to Ashoka. Ashoka is way more faster, as you can see, initial charge and regular charge, way bigger healing over the target. It's a single target, okay, it's actually two targets healer, but at the end of the day, because of the Ashoka, having a second healer, different type of healer, actually helped me to pass a lot of campaigns. And other way around, same for the tanks. I have, for example, Caesar. Now Caesar is having this incredible invisibility for 3 seconds. He cannot get killed by these 3 seconds. Now King Minos is having shield. Now if the enemies are that strong that they basically broke the shield of my King Minos under, for example, like 1 seconds, I prefer to go with Caesar. And things like this, you know, you have shield, you have invisibility for 3 seconds. And also taunts. Both of these two heroes do taunting. Or sometimes I go in both tanks, and one tank taunt, everybody go there. When I start seeing the tank is getting heavy damage, I taunt it with the other tank. And like this, I play with the damage, where the damage are going. But the campaigns can actually give you pretty decent information in this direction. And yeah, maybe you should stop leveling the same type of heroes over and over again. The WoW itself is giving you information. Most players just interpretation is just need more power. And maybe that's the most expensive misunderstanding in the game. Because if the WoW is actually asking for a tool, more power might not solve it. It might just delay the realization. And honestly, that's probably the biggest thing campaigning has taught me. When I get stuck at now, I don't immediately ask how much stronger I need to become. I ask what the stage is trying to teach me. And obviously at one point you're going to hit the wall where you just have to level up your heroes, okay? You just have to level up the abilities. It's not like you can finish all the campaigning at level 1 because you can use different heroes and other way around. Sometimes things are not like this. But in majority of the cases, when somebody's stuck at one place, the majority of the cases is just, you know, not having this flexibility. Because sometimes the answer is more powerful, but a lot of time the answer is hidden somewhere inside your roster. And so now I'm curious, what's the strangest campaigning quote you have ever hit? Was it actually a power problem? Or did you eventually realize the stage was asking for a completely different solution than you expected? Let me know in the comments below. And yeah, this is going to be for this video. I just see this this thing over and over again about the campaignings. And people asking, yo guys, how you finish that campaigning, how you finish this campaigning. It can actually give you an idea if somebody tell you I use this in this hero, but those heroes that is going to give you as a solution, it may be way more better builded from your. For example, somebody say I use Maria Curie, but Maria Curie's spell is level 40 and your Maria Curie is level 10, for example. or it's like 3-time awakened Maria Curie. Your Maria Curie is not awakened. I mean, even if they give you the heroes that you're going to need, still not guarantee you're going to finish with this stage. This is the point. So yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you hit one like, subscribe, and if you want to support my channel and get early access to my videos, you can become a member in the button join under this video. So I wish you a great day and see you in the next video.